Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, Israel has announced that it has reached a historic agreement with Lebanon over its maritime borders. Interim Prime Minister Yair Lapid said this deal will strengthen Israel's security, inject billions into Israel's economy, and ensure the stability of Israel's northern border. The treaty will resolve a decades-long dispute over 330 square miles of the Mediterranean Sea, which holds several natural gas reserves. One of the main points of contention causing the deal to briefly stall last week was Beirut's refusal to participate in a joint signing ceremony with Jerusalem because Lebanon remains in a state of war with Israel. The parties agreed to sign the treaty in separate rooms with representatives from the United States. The proposal must still pass the approval of the Israeli Security Council and will likely need to go before the Knesset since the current government is operating in a provisional capacity. Opponents of this deal believe that this is a complete capitulation to the Hezbollah terror organization, which controls Lebanon.
Israel's interim prime minister Yair Lapid has harshly criticized the massive Russian missile strikes on several cities in Ukraine. At least 11 people were killed and more than 60 wounded when the Kremlin launched 80 missiles on targets throughout the country. Kiev claims that Moscow is launching weaponized Iranian drones from Belarus, which are intentionally aimed at civilian infrastructure, such as public parks. Lapid spoke out against the attacks, saying he strongly condemns Russia's missile barrage, which he said targeted the civilian population in Kiev and other cities.
Israelis held a rally in solidarity with the women of Iran. 5 weeks ago, 22-year-old Masha Amini was arrested by the country's morality police for failing to cover her head properly. She was beaten in custody and died of her injuries. Since then, Iranian citizens have taken to the streets protesting the oppression of women and calling for the death of the dictator Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. These protests are the most substantial since Iran was overthrown by Islamists and a fanatic theocracy was established in 1979. The rallies have been met with violent crackdowns. Rights groups say that more than 185 people have been killed and hundreds injured by Iranian security forces. 19 of the dead are said to be children. In a show of solidarity, Israelis gathered in Jerusalem to protest the violence and advocate for the freedom of the Iranian people. Several Israeli women cut their hair, and protesters held signs in Persian and Hebrew expressing their love and support for Iranian civilians.
Gunmen in Bethlehem opened fire on a hotel for displaying Jewish and Christian symbols. A guest reportedly uploaded a video of the establishment's conference room, which was decorated with a menorah and the Star of David during the Feast of Tabernacles. Arabs launched a social media campaign falsely claiming that the hotel was planning to host Jews for Sukkot. The facility began to receive threats almost immediately, despite the manager's insistence that his establishment does not allow Jewish guests. The Palestinian Authority was given control of Bethlehem in December of 1995. Since then, Israelis have been forbidden from entering the city, and Christians have suffered immense persecution there. Many Christians have fled Bethlehem due to attacks by PA-affiliated terror groups. The Christian population has dropped from 80% in the past to less than 10% today. The few brave Christians that remain in Bethlehem suffer constant harassment from the Muslim majority there. Masked members of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade were filmed outside of the hotel following the shooting. One of the armed men warned that Fatah will never allow a celebration that normalizes relations with Israel, and he vowed that his group would strike any collaborators with an iron fist.
The United Nations Human Rights Council has refused to hold a discussion on China's human rights abuses. Beijing has been accused of genocide against the Uyghur population, but a resolution proposed at the UNHRC to hold an official debate on the subject failed in a vote of 19 to 17, with 11 abstentions. Under the leadership of former President Trump, the United States withdrew from the UNHRC, calling it a fundamentally flawed organization that has made a mockery of human rights. Both Jerusalem and Washington have accused the body of systematic discrimination against the Jewish state, while virtually ignoring countries with gross human rights records, such as China, Iran, and North Korea. Israel is the only country that has a permanent commission of inquiry leveled against it. Agenda item number 7 mandates the UNHRC to discuss alleged Israeli abuses against Palestinians at every session. This disproportionate focus has led to the Council passing 99 resolutions against Israel, more than any other country.
Egypt is demanding that England return the Rosetta Stone. This precious artifact holds inscriptions of the same text in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, Demonic, and ancient Greek. It has become the key in deciphering lost languages and has shed light on ancient Egyptian culture. The Rosetta Stone was discovered in northern Egypt in the year 1799 by Napoleon's army. It has been in the custody of the British Museum since 1802, and now Egyptian officials are demanding that it be returned. The country is planning to open a new museum near the pyramids in Giza, and they feel that the artifact will help boost tourism.
The Church of England and the British Catholic Church have spoken out against moving the UK's embassy to Jerusalem. The Archbishops of Cardiff and Canterbury sent a letter warning British Prime Minister Liz Truss against relocating Britain's diplomatic mission to the Israeli capital of Jerusalem. Truss said that she is seriously considering the move and has repeatedly called herself a Zionist and a friend of the Jewish state. The clergy said that relocating the embassy to Jerusalem could damage the international reputation of the United Kingdom. Similar warnings were leveled at the United States before former President Trump moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Threats of regional instability never materialized, and the countries of Guatemala and Honduras quickly followed suit. 8 other countries are considering the move, and if the UK makes the decision to recognize Jerusalem as the undivided capital of the Jewish state, they may announce the establishment of their embassies in the Holy City as well.
The Israel Defense Forces announced that it will be adding thousands of nano-satellites to its arsenal. The array will provide the Jewish state with better and more consistent surveillance from space of its enemies. This advanced equipment will allow the IDF to generate a picture of any point in the world within minutes. The elite 9900 unit of the Intelligence Corps will operate this new addition to Israel's space technology arsenal. They've developed an algorithm that streamlines the process of photographing locations and organizing them to create a more efficient system. For example, the software is programmed to read a country's landscape and automatically identify ideal routes for tank units. This program is part of a growing collaboration with the United States military.
Samantha Cristoforetti, the commander at the International Space Station, has sent her greetings to Israel, along with several breathtaking pictures of the Jewish state from outer space. The Italian astronaut is the first woman to command the International Space Station. She sent shalom to Israel on her Twitter account, where she posted beautiful pictures of Haifa, Tel Aviv, and the Dead Sea, taken from orbit.
In financial news, Mobileye, the Israeli self-driving tech firm, which was purchased by Intel in 2017, has filed for an initial public offering in the United States. Intel has reevaluated the company, which produces technology for driverless cars, at over $30 billion. This evaluation could make Mobileye one of the biggest IPOs to take place this year. The company released a statement saying it has experienced significant advancements since its founding. Mobileye has grown by 43% every year for the past 3 years. In 2020, its revenue was $1.4 billion.
Jews in Israel and around the world are celebrating the end of the sabbatical or Shemitah year. The Bible commands that Jews must allow the land of Israel to lay fallow every 7th year. Jews are forbidden from pruning, sowing, or planting in the soil during this time. The 7th year cycle just ended on September 27th with the conclusion of Rosh Hashanah. In biblical times, Jews celebrated the end of Shemitah by gathering at the temple on the first day of Sukkot to hear a public reading of the Torah by the king of Israel. This ancient Jewish practice, known as Hakel, is the fulfillment of the commandment described in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 12. It says, gather the people together, men, women, children, and the strangers within your gate, that they may hear, learn, and faithfully observe every word of this law. Hakel means assemble in Hebrew, and more than 500 of these special gatherings took place last week during the Feast of Tabernacles.
The Feast of Tabernacles concludes on Sunday with the celebration of Hoshana Rabbah, where Jews bid farewell to the Sukkah. On Monday, Jews will celebrate the culmination of the High Holy Days with Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. This special holiday is a celebration of receiving the 5 books of Moses at Mount Sinai. It marks the end of the annual cycle of weekly Bible readings and the beginning of a new one. It is traditionally marked by dancing with Torah scrolls and studying the Hebrew Bible all night long. Jews read the final passages of Deuteronomy and then roll the scrolls back to immediately begin reading the first passages of Genesis. This act is meant to signify the eternal nature of the Torah.
The state of Israel has experienced the blessings of the first rains of the season. Jews around the world will begin praying for rain on Shmini Atzeret, or the last day of Sukkot. The prayer, called Tfilat Geshem, asks God to grace the land with the gift of flowing water. This prayer is incorporated into the liturgy, repeated 3 times daily, and concludes with the famous line, praising God who makes the wind blow and the rain descend. Precipitation is extremely important in the land of Israel, and the first rain, known fondly as the Yerah, is seen as a special blessing from God. As it says in Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 14, I will give you the rain in your land in its season, the first rain and the last.
The Israel Allies Foundation is one of the most important pro-Israel organizations in the United States and around the world. Thanks to the Israel Allies Foundation, its parliamentary caucuses, and our Christian friends and partners around the world, the bond between our faiths has never been stronger.
I just want to begin by saying thank you to the Israel Allies Foundation for bringing us together from near and far to say with one voice, America stands with Israel.
The Israel Allies Foundation is ensuring a better future for Israel, America, and the rest of the world.
Thank you all for being Israel's allies.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Tommy Waller. He's the president and founder of Hayovel. Tommy, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, Josh.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is Hayovel.
Hayovel is an organization started 18 years ago now. It seems, wow, it seems like yesterday we just got here. But we are bringing, I like to use the Isaiah 52 passage because Isaiah says, how beautiful are the feet of those who come and say to Zion, your God reigns. I like to think of Hayovel as the beautiful feet that are coming to the mountains of Israel and declaring to the Jewish people that your God reigns. That in a nutshell, that's what we do. Now, we do a lot in agriculture and restoration of the land, all the prophetic things that we see in the scriptures, almost every prophet talks about, right? The restoration of the land, the physical restoration, the touchable. That's what got me 18 years ago, was just being in that field with the Orthodox Jew for the first time. You know me, I'm from Tennessee. Not a lot of Jews where I'm at. Tater Peeler Road didn't have a lot of synagogues there. I'm meeting an Orthodox Jew. He reads to me Jeremiah 31, and my knees start shaking. I'm like, I'm touching this. And it changed my life. We brought the family, big family, 11 children.
Wow.
And we were like the Beverly Hillbillies. We loaded up the truck, you know. And so, People, word of mouth started again. We started a 501c3 in the States and began to bring people over.
Well, you brought thousands of people over the last years, and you've been tilling the land of Israel with a focus in Judea and Samaria. You bring groups specifically to Judea and Samaria to pick grapes, to help with the harvest. Why Judea and Samaria?
Well, first of all, it's where the battleground is. I think that Christianity needs to understand that we obviously understand. If you go to a congregation somewhere, or church meeting, whatever, and you ask them, was 1967 a miracle? Answer 100%, every hand goes up, yes. Was it from God? Yes. But Josh, we're still fighting a fight. It's a 55-year war, really. And we're still fighting, the Oslo agreements and all of these things. They're pushing against the Jewish story that's supposed to take place beginning on these mountains. This is where I'm sitting where Abraham got the promise, came from his father's house. We're there on those mountains, and I think it's important for Christians to understand that we are, and many Jews believe this, we're the game changers in a positive way. The support of the Jewish communities that are now rebuilding on the mountains of Israel, those people need the support from the nations. And it seems simple, like, okay, we're just picking grapes. But we get a lot of attention. I didn't know that when I came here, but you'll get a lot of attention picking grapes in Judea and Samaria. Why? Because it's such a hotbed. There's such a force against that place. And biblically, if we're Bible believers, then we have to recognize, one, the miracle and that God is moving. And if we believe God did it, then what's our response?
Well, we're now right after the Shemitah. We're in the time of the Feast of Tabernacles. This is the year that just passed where the land has to just lay fallow.
Yeah.
How does that affect your work?
Well, we hope the gates open. How many? The thing is, my question is, I wake up every morning going, how many people do we need to change the story? How many people do we need to where Israel has sovereignty, where real peace actually comes to the land of Israel? How many people, beautiful feet, does it take to come to Israel and we see a change in the narrative? And is it, because we're bringing 400, we get, a year approximately. We're getting a lot of, attention that way. New York Times said in 2010, we were effectively obstructing the creation of a Palestinian state. But it's got to be more than that. It's got to be Christians coming together collectively, supporting the biblical story of Israel. And I think we hope, maybe there's 1,000 next year. Maybe there's 5,000. Maybe at 5,000 something happens. Maybe 10,000. Maybe it's 100,000. Can you imagine 100,000 people coming to plant, to harvest, to declare to Israel, you know what, we're standing with God on this.
You have Christians coming not just from the United States, but all over the world. I mean, they're literally coming from everywhere.
Over
How are
30
they
countries
finding
now.
out about this? How are they getting involved?
That's a good question. We have a good media team. We have guys that are putting out weekly programs just about Judea and Samaria, and it's called the Israel Guys. So if you just theisraelguys.com, you'll get a lot of stories of what's happening, feet on the ground. We're seeing it. We know what's happening, and it's not people need to know, and they need to understand that the Jewish people are fighting literally for their lives. There is a mafia government. I want to say mafia government because it's still, even though they publicly declare it, they're still paying Arabs to murder Jews. And what we've seen,
You're talking about in the Palestinian Authority.
Yes, in the Palestinian Authority, the government over the Palestinians. And they're not hiding it. There's something that we can do about that. We can stand, we can stop the foolishness of this government that's trying to again wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. And I think we have an opportunity to really strengthen and stand with the Jewish people.
Tommy, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Listen, I would like to see every pastor, every leader begin to talk about this issue in the pulpit. Because if you can just say to your congregation, we need to get involved, not as word of mouth, not as just here this guy's going and hey, let's go do this. But your congregation getting involved in doing this is the game changer. I'm speaking to the people that believe that they can change literally the world. And I think that we can do that together, collectively. We're going to bring and see peace here finally.
Thank you, Tommy, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod, United Israel Appeal. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. The story of the Ethiopian Jews returning to their homeland have moved people around the world. Let's listen to the story of two individuals who are making a profound difference. God bless you from Jerusalem.
A mission to Ethiopia. Through their deep faith, Roy and Yuklin Chen, a devout Bible-believing Christian couple from Hong Kong, received a sign from heaven, revealing their personal mission in life. They found it in an amazing series of inspired events that took them on a transformative spiritual journey along a road strewn with signs and wonders to help realize God's promise to return the exiled people of Israel back to their ancestral homeland.
In 2006, on November the 11th at 5 o'clock in the morning, the Lord woke me up and started to tell me to look up different books, chapter 11, verse 11, which is that He will bring His children from all corners of the world back home, including places like Cush. After we found out that Cush is Ethiopia and was praying, meditating on Psalm 87, suddenly the Lord says, bring the Ethiopian Jews back.
They traveled all the way from Hong Kong to Ethiopia, where they were joined by Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, who is tasked with bringing the rest of the Ethiopian Jews back to Israel.
After 2 years of hearing from God, a specific assignment that we now have a chance to actually participate in something so historically significant. We felt the Lord telling us to actually meet with the remaining Ethiopian Jews, to encourage them, to remind them that Father God, Abba, has not forgotten them, but that in His perfect time, He will bring them back, His sons and daughters.
The Lord says, stop everything and write everything down. And He gave us Isaiah 17, 18, and 19. And then He says, call the world 777. We didn't understand what it meant. This year is the year 5777. So we wondered whether this is the year that we are to call the world to support the Aliyah of these Velash Mura and of the other lost tribes.
The Israeli government has just authorized the movement of, at the time, the last batch of Ethiopian Jews back to Israel. And the operation was going to be called Operation Wings of a Dove. This is the piece of jewelry that I picked up for my wife, and the name of the operation was called the Wings of a Dove. I showed it to everyone at the meeting, and everyone was totally shocked. All of us started to weep. This was a divine appointment.
Inspired by the Ethiopian Jewish community's love for the God, state, and people of Israel, this journey strengthened their determination to fulfill this biblical prophecy and inspire others to help bring an exile of almost 3,000 years to a final close.
We feel very blessed to be here with you because we were sent to come here. We just want to make an appeal, if we can, and ask that you, as you watch this and hear our story, that you would also first pray for the Ethiopian Jews, that they would be able to be brought back quickly, safely, and that secondly, whether God has called you also to support this movement.
We have visited their camp in Gondor. Many of them have died while waiting to go home.
Together, we will bring all our brothers and sisters back to Jerusalem. Toda Rabba. Thank you very much.
Thus said the Lord God, Behold, I will lift up my hand to the nations, and set up my standard to the peoples. And they will bring your sons into their bosom, and your daughters will be carried on their shoulders. Isaiah chapter 49, verse 22.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit khisrael.org.
We are living in mysterious yet miraculous times. We've witnessed the most remarkable fulfillment of biblical prophecy, the Jewish people's return to Israel, and the prosperity and contributions of this tiny country in such a short time. Yet we've also seen an unexpected rise in anti-Semitism, which takes the form of anti-Zionism, and alliances between groups that are fighting against the most fundamental biblical values. In the book Titus, Trump, and the Triumph of Israel, Josh Reinstein answers important questions to clarify what has driven political action from the time that the Roman Emperor Titus destroyed Jerusalem until today, when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Get your copy today and learn how faith-based diplomacy has changed the world. To order your advance copy, go to triumphofisrael.com.
That's all for this week's edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.